What is the burden of proof in a civil case?
In a civil case, it's different. You have to prove, the plaintiff, have to prove your case on the preponderance of evidence. In some countries, it's on the balance of probabilities, that your argument is more likely than not to be the more dominant argument in that case. So if you're advancing an argument, it's more likely that your side of the story is true than the defendant. So when you put your argument across, you as the plaintiff have to prove it. Defendant has to defend it or should defend it. That involves two parties being involved in proceedings. In criminal cases, it's the state has to move the case all the time and beyond a reasonable doubt. In civil cases, it's on the balance of probabilities, the preponderance of evidence, which is a much lower standard.
What is the burden of proof in a criminal case?
In a criminal case, the burden of proof rests with the prosecution. They have to prove that you committed the offense, and they have to prove it to the standard of beyond a reasonable doubt. So the burden is with them all the time. You, the defendant, don't have to prove anything. You're not obliged to prove your innocence. You don't have to if you don't want to give evidence, and nothing can be inferred from that refusal. In fact, it happens quite a lot. People don't do it. The prosecutor must prove that you're guilty beyond a reasonable doubt right the way through. There's no requirement on the defendant to prove anything whatsoever.
Who has the burden of proof in a criminal case?
The state, the government, the prosecutor, however you want to put it, they're the ones who have the burden all the time. And it never shifts from them to the defendant. In civil cases, the burden of proving something can sometimes move to the defendant to kind of disprove something. But in criminal cases, it never leaves the prosecution. They have to shoulder it all the way through to the end. And they must prove every element of the case beyond a reasonable doubt. If you have a defense as a defendant, then the state have to disprove your defense. They have to show that couldn't be the case. If sometimes the burden does switch a little bit to the defendant, but rarely. In nearly every criminal case, all the way through, start to finish, it's the state, and they must prove it, as I said, beyond a reasonable doubt, always.